The Starship Horizon's light descended slowly toward the shining surface of Alaris Prime. Captain Mason Hale stood on the observation deck, watching the planet grow larger through the transparent hull. The sky above shimmered with silver clouds, and below, crystal towers reflected the sun like liquid glass. Floating gardens drifted among the spires, each filled with luminous plants that seemed to glow from within. The humans on the ship stared in awe, but Mason remained calm. He had seen wonders before, yet something about this world felt different. It felt alive, and it watched him back. He turned to the crew. "Prepare for atmospheric entry. Remember, our mission is diplomatic. We must respect the customs of the Alaran." His voice was firm, but inside, Mason felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had trained for many scenarios, but first contact with an alien royal family was something no training could truly prepare a man for. The shuttle doors opened, and a gentle breeze of warm, metallic-scented air greeted them. Mason stepped onto the landing platform, feeling the soft vibration of energy beneath his boots. Alaran attendants, tall and graceful, approached with flowing garments that shimmered like the sky. Their skin was pale with a faint luminescent sheen, and their eyes were large, reflecting colors that humans could not name. "Welcome, humans," said a voice that was both melodic and commanding. Mason turned to see an elder Alaran, his robes like liquid silver, eyes calm yet piercing. "I am Valen, keeper of the Celestial Court. The Empress awaits you." Mason bowed respectfully. "We come in peace and with hopes of understanding." Valen inclined his head. "Then you will be treated with honor." He motioned for the humans to follow, and the group moved across a bridge of light that stretched toward the palace. Mason noticed the way the gardens floated around them, each plant pulsing softly as if breathing. A soft hum filled the air, and Mason realized it was the resonance of the Alaran energy field. It was peaceful but powerful, and it made his heart beat faster. Inside the Celestial Court, the humans saw the Alaran royal family. At the center, seated on a throne of crystal light, was Empress Lyriel. Her presence was commanding, yet her eyes held a kindness Mason did not expect. Around her stood guards and advisors, all radiating the calm, controlled energy typical of the Alaran. But it was not the Empress who drew Mason's attention. A figure stepped slightly forward from the side, a young Alaran, tall and graceful, with hair that shimmered like spun silver. Her eyes, a deep violet, locked onto Mason's instantly. He felt a strange warmth, a pull that went beyond curiosity. This was Princess Lyrithel. She smiled slightly, as if she had been expecting him. Mason swallowed. He knew he should remain composed, yet something about her presence unsettled him. "Captain Hale," he introduced himself. "It is an honor to meet you, Princess." Lyra's smile widened, faintly amused. "Captain Hale, your species is unusual, yet I sense something in you. Courage, curiosity, a mind that seeks more than survival. That is rare." Mason blinked. "I only wish to understand your people and learn from them." Her gaze held his for a moment longer before she turned gracefully toward the Empress. Mason noticed how the Alaran moved, each gesture elegant and precise, almost as if their bodies were instruments of thought. He could not help but admire their discipline. The Empress's voice rang clear, soft but firm. "We welcome you, humans. Our histories have been distant, our encounters few. Today we hope to bridge that distance." Mason stepped forward, bowing slightly. "We are grateful for your hospitality, Your Majesty. Our intent is peace and friendship." Valen guided them through the palace halls, and Mason could not help but notice the energy fields that seemed to flow along the walls and ceilings. They moved like rivers of light, connecting every chamber in patterns that were both beautiful and mysterious. The humans felt a sense of calm but also awe, as if they were walking through a living organism. Later, in a garden terrace overlooking the floating city, Mason walked with Lyra. The wind teased strands of her silver hair, and the soft glow of the plants made her features appear almost ethereal. "You humans are fascinating," she said quietly, her voice carrying a melodic tone that Mason found impossible to ignore. "You think with your hands, with your bodies, with your hearts, yet you do not see the energy that binds all things, the thread of life that connects everything. Most of your kind cannot sense it, but I can feel it in you." Mason paused. "I don't fully understand what you mean." She tilted her head, her eyes searching his. "You are different. Most humans cling to fear or ambition or anger. You do not, at least not in the way I sense it. You are brave, yes, but also curious, open. That is why I am interested in you, Captain Hale. Before Mason could respond, the sky above the city darkened suddenly. A ripple of energy surged through the palace grounds and alarms rang throughout the city. Mason's instincts took over. What's happening? Valen appeared beside them, his expression grave. A rogue faction among the Alaran seeks to disrupt the peace talks. They wield dangerous energy devices. Protect yourselves. Chaos erupted. Energy beams streaked across the gardens, tearing through walkways and sending floating plants spiraling. Guards moved swiftly to intercept the attackers, but Mason noticed civilians trapped nearby. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward them, dodging blasts of energy and lifting a fallen child from harm. Lyra's hands glowed as she channeled energy to stabilize collapsing structures. Mason watched in awe as she moved with precision, her power both gentle and immense. When a rogue attacker aimed a beam at her, Mason shoved her out of the way, taking the brunt of the energy strike himself. Pain shot through his body and he fell to his knees, but his focus remained on keeping her safe. Lyra's eyes widened. She rushed to him, her hands glowing brighter. As she laid them on his chest, a warm light enveloped him. Mason felt something strange, an awareness that was not entirely his own. He could sense her emotions, fear, concern, and a strange fascination. In turn, she seemed to feel his courage and confusion, as if their minds were brushing against each other. The attackers were quickly subdued by the palace guards. Mason sat on the ground exhausted as Lyra helped him to his feet. Her eyes held a mixture of relief and curiosity. You are remarkable, Captain Hale. No human has ever acted with such selflessness among my people. Mason shook his head, trying to clear the pain. I just did what anyone would do. Lyra stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Not anyone human. I have seen many in my life, yet none of them moved like you. I feel something. Would you like to bond with me? Mason froze. Bonding was a sacred act among the Alaran, reserved for life partners within their own species. He had read about it in the briefings, how it merged thoughts, emotions, and memories in a connection deeper than any human could imagine. No human had ever been offered such a thing. I don't know, Mason admitted, his voice low. I've never experienced anything like that. Lyra smiled gently, her hand still resting near his. It is not merely an experience. It is trust. It is understanding. It is a bridge between our worlds. I offer it to you because I sense your heart, your mind, and I wish to know them. Mason looked into her violet eyes and felt a pull he could not resist. The energy between them was tangible, a thread connecting two very different beings. He nodded slowly. I want to try. Lyra's smile brightened and a soft glow surrounded her hands. For a moment Mason felt fear, uncertainty, and exhilaration all at once. Then as their minds brushed together, he sensed her thoughts. She wondered about humans, about the strength that came from imperfection, about courage born from choice rather than instinct. He sensed her hope, her curiosity, and a strange, gentle affection. It was overwhelming, but it was not frightening. Mason felt his own thoughts reach out to her. Memories of his family, his training, his moments of doubt and determination. The bond was forming, and with it, a bridge of understanding that neither human nor Alaran had ever crossed. The light around them dimmed as they broke the connection, leaving both of them breathless. Mason looked at Lyra, his mind buzzing with new sensations and emotions. That was incredible, he whispered. Lyra's eyes twinkled. And it has only begun, human. There is much we can learn from each other. Behind them, the palace was in disarray from the attack, but the humans and Alaran began to rebuild together. Mason realized that his mission had changed. It was no longer just diplomacy. It was understanding, trust, and perhaps something deeper. Something that could unite two very different species in a way history had never seen. As night fell over Alaris Prime, the city glowed with its usual silver light, but Mason felt a warmth he had never known. Somewhere deep inside, a bond had formed, not just between him and Lyra, but between humanity and the Alaran, and it was only the beginning. Mason stood on the terrace looking out over the floating gardens and crystal towers. Lyra approached, her presence calm and radiant. Rest now, human, she said softly. Tomorrow we begin a journey that neither of us will forget. Mason nodded, his heart full of both anticipation and wonder. The stars above seemed brighter, the world below more alive. For the first time in his life, he felt that he was part of something far greater than himself, and at that moment, he knew that the story of humanity and the Alaran had truly begun. The morning on Alaris Prime was quiet and luminous. Silver sunlight spilled across the floating gardens, making the crystalline towers sparkle like stars fallen to the ground. Captain Mason Hale woke with a strange sense of anticipation. The bond he had shared with Princess Lyra the night before lingered in his mind like a soft echo. It was more than a memory. It was a thread connecting him to something far greater than himself, something both human and alien. Mason dressed quickly, checking his equipment and scanning his surroundings. Lyra had asked him to meet her on the terrace for the morning ceremony, a gathering where the Empress and her council discussed the rebuilding after the attack. Mason had learned that despite their elegance and calm, the Alaran faced challenges just like any civilization. Rebuilding the city required both wisdom and cooperation. Lyra was already there when he arrived, standing gracefully with the silver wind teasing her hair. Her violet eyes held a depth he could feel even without their bond actively connecting them. She smiled. "Good morning, human. You slept well?" "I did," Mason admitted. "More than I expected. Your people's energy. It is calming but also overwhelming in the best way." She laughed softly. "You adapt quickly. That is why I chose to bond with you. You are not afraid to feel, to act, to connect." Mason felt a flush of pride, but he pushed it aside. "I hope I can live up to your trust." Lyra's gaze softened. "You already have. Today we must face both politics and those who do not wish for our friendship to grow." The ceremony began in the palace hall, a vast chamber where walls of light shifted with patterns of energy that reflected the Alaran's thoughts. Empress Lyriel presided over the council, her voice calm but firm. She addressed the human envoy first. "Captain Hale, your actions yesterday were brave. You have shown that humanity is capable of great compassion, even in the face of danger." Mason bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what anyone would do to protect life." The Empress nodded, but Mason noticed tension in her eyes. Several council members whispered among themselves, casting occasional glances at Lyra. Mason understood quickly. His bond with Lyra was unprecedented, and some among the Alaran feared what it could mean. As the discussions continued, a warning sounded. Valen, the keeper of the court, rushed in. "Rebel forces have regrouped near the northern sector. They plan another assault targeting the palace and its people." Mason's instincts kicked in. He knew he could not wait for orders. "Lyra," he said, "we have to help. We cannot let them harm your people." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "The Empress forbids it, human. She fears that your presence in battle could cause unrest." Mason shook his head. "I do not fight for politics. I fight for people. I will not stand aside while innocents are in danger." Lyra studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. Then we act together." They moved swiftly to the northern sector. Mason marveled at how the Alaran used their energy, not as a weapon alone, but as a tool to manipulate the environment. Lyra guided floating gardens to shield civilians, while Mason used human tactics, his training in strategy and combat allowing him to predict the rebels' moves. The rebels attacked with energy weapons, their devices destabilizing parts of the floating platforms. Mason ducked behind a shard of crystal, calculating his next move. Lyra's hands glowed, and she raised a barrier that absorbed several blasts at once. Mason felt the bond deepen as they moved in sync, their minds touching faintly, anticipating each other's actions. During a sudden ambush, a rebel aimed at Lyra. Mason threw himself forward, deflecting the beam with his armored gauntlet. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he stood firm. Lyra's energy flared, and she lifted the platform beneath them, sending the attackers tumbling into the floating gardens safely. After the battle, Mason and Lyra stood among the ruins of a shattered plaza. The rebels had been defeated, but the cost was evident. Civilians were shaken, and parts of the city needed urgent repair. Mason looked at Lyra. "Your people are resilient, and you are incredible." Lyra shook her head. "I could not have done this without you, human. You see the world differently and you act differently. That is why the bond works. We understand each other." The bond they shared now was stronger. Mason could sense her thoughts, not fully, but enough to feel her fears and hopes. He realized that the Alaran way of life was based on connection, linking minds to understand and grow together. Humans had never known such depth, and yet he felt at home in it. That evening, they returned to the palace. The Empress awaited them in the main hall. She had observed the battle from a distance. Her expression was serious, but there was a hint of approval. "Captain Hale, Princess Lyra," the Empress began, "you have both acted with courage and unity. You have proven that bonds can transcend fear and prejudice. While our customs are strict, I see that what you share is extraordinary." Mason bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. My intention was never to break tradition, but to protect life." The Empress studied him, then looked at Lyra. "It seems that the bond you have formed cannot be ignored. You have shown that humanity can be worthy of trust, even sacred trust. If you continue, it will be a first among the Alaran. But perhaps it is time for firsts that matter." Lyra's eyes glimmered. She reached for Mason's hand. The bond that had started as curiosity was now deepening into mutual respect and understanding. Mason felt a warmth he had never known, a feeling that his presence, his choices, mattered in a way that transcended culture and species. In the following days, Mason trained with the Alaran, learning their techniques for channeling energy, while teaching them human strategies for problem-solving and defense. The bond between him and Lyra became a source of strength. They discovered that their differences complemented each other. Mason's human creativity and adaptability, paired with Lyra's precision and control, allowed them to accomplish feats that neither could do alone. The people of Alaris Prime began to notice. Children whispered of the human who could understand their princess, and elders spoke in quiet awe of the bravery and kindness he had shown. Even skeptics began to accept that perhaps the bond between species could symbolize a new era of cooperation and peace. One night, under the silver light of the twin moons, Mason and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The air was warm, filled with the hum of energy that flowed like rivers across the towers and gardens. "You have changed things, human," Lyra said softly. "Not just for me, but for everyone here. The bond, it is stronger now. I can feel your thoughts even when you do not speak. And I hope you can feel mine." Mason took a deep breath. "I do. I feel your curiosity, your hope, your care for this world. And I feel connected, like I belong here, not just as a visitor, but as someone who matters." Lyra smiled, stepping closer. Their hands met, and the glow of her energy surrounded them, subtle and gentle. Mason felt his mind expand slightly, touching hers in ways words could not describe. Memories, emotions, thoughts, they were shared. Not completely merged, but enough to understand and trust each other fully. "You are never alone, human," Lyra whispered, echoing her voice not just to his ears but to his mind. "And neither am I. Together we can face anything." The months that followed saw the rebuilding of Alaris Prime, but it was more than physical reconstruction. Mason and Lyra's bond became a bridge between humans and Alaran. Cultural exchanges flourished. New technologies were shared and misunderstandings faded. Where there had been fear, there was now respect. Where there had been distance, there was connection. The Empress granted Mason a permanent place among the Alaran as an ambassador, the first human ever to hold such a position. It was a symbol of unity, proof that courage, empathy, and understanding could overcome centuries of separation. Mason never forgot his home on Earth, but he no longer felt torn between worlds. With Lyra at his side, he had found a place where he belonged, a purpose that stretched beyond survival or duty. He had become a part of something greater than himself and, in turn, had shown the Alaran that humanity was capable of remarkable things. As the twin moons rose over the crystal towers, Mason and Lyra stood hand in hand, gazing at the city below. The wind carried the soft hum of energy, the sound of life and connection flowing through every being and structure. Mason felt the bond pulse gently, a reminder that he was never alone. Lyra leaned close, her voice echoing in his mind and heart. "Now, human, our journey begins. Together we will face what comes next, and no matter what, we will stand united." Mason smiled, the weight of fear and doubt gone. "Together," he agreed, feeling the truth of her words in every fiber of his being. And so, on a world of silver skies and floating gardens, a human and an alien princess stood as a bridge between two species. The bond they shared promised hope, understanding, and unity. A bond that would shape the future of both their peoples for generations to come. The stars above shone brighter that night, as if witnessing the first true harmony between human courage and alien wisdom. Mason knew without question that he was exactly where he was meant to be, and for the first time, he truly understood what it meant to belong.